You can see the targets. But even though in the important factors were not even taken into account. So if we could get such a right inside it, you have many restaurants expanding. I mean, we have heard about the story of cocoa. It is not new. I want to emphasize here is the fact that so that tells us that the CGIAR and which we have seen as innovative, even though we are still going to describe it for people to easily understand. It is a kind of mechanism that will help us to really know which is going to be on the line. Level. Number 3, at our officer and the RMT level, to examine and report offered to them by centers via the clearance and their partnership. It has been talked, everybody has mentioned partnership. To impact delivery. Help us to demonstrate real results on the ground. Mutual accountability in going from research and innovation systems to impact. Harnessing and combining, it is about research. I know this is thought-provoking in a research institute like IITA. When we use terms like the following, we're not talking of that. To be developed, shall be, may be, design versus will be designed, will identify, is under development, are developing, working to. These are all things in progress, relatively well developed. So we're not talking of that. Now, this is an important aspect of that, the transaction and accountability aspect. We need to understand this because it is one thing that can help us to sell this program. It is an important intervention for inclusion within the bank loans supporting the agricultural transformation agenda in a manner that meets or actually exceeds the demand for agricultural products projected for 2025. And it is about dealing with major challenges that face African agricultural sector. It's about clarity. They have something, but they have not been, these are not yet articulated, so we need to articulate them. And then you can see the plethora of unclear technologies. And this, it could be that they were not properly described for me to be able to understand. What is important for TAAT? We are looking for technologies that we are able to know the length, the width, and it has to be crystal clear. It's not something that is fuzzy. So it is a challenge for us. And this is the work that the clearinghouse will do to help us. And then we are going to, through the mechanism, we'll call on people to submit briefs on what they have. And then these things will be checked, including their recommendation domains in terms of how climate smart is it, how sure it is, and this has to be defended. And then, value added, the newness of what is planned, how different it is from earlier initiatives, how the lessons learned from past interventions have been taken into consideration. These are critical in eliciting the donors. The technology have to be clear and exact, and of course the plans that will guarantee successful outreach and impact on the ground. Now, clear points of departure, like I said before, from earlier research initiatives, taking their outputs to the next level, and clear distinction on about that. There will be research issues. It is good to articulate those research issues and see which ones are things we can do to help to usher the technologies rightly to deliver. And ones are best articulated for other kind of support. I think it is important. We have to also think about tangible products for every single implications of that section. Technologies for scaling up and interventions are open. And this is part of what should be done by the clearinghouse. They are open. The roles and responsibilities are also open. Then, cost estimates, they are tentative and need validation. Then project results, they are open to validation. Pre-identification report, not yet a proposal for funding, but could be used as a benchmark or starting point for developing a project or projects for funding with additional inputs from this workshop. The TAAT clearinghouse, clearly seen as a project that could be funded, but different from multinational TAAT. So we have to address that. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you, Jonas, for the good presentation. I think now we are all, at least we are starting to be on the same page. And we are really running behind time, but this is so important that we cannot avoid it. We've heard what TAAT is and what TAAT is not about. From my understanding, it is putting ready-to-go technologies to use immediate. We've also heard about the implementation modalities, particularly in terms of partnerships, accountability, and the transactional approach that will be used in this program. I know you may have questions or clarifications. Please note them down, because after each presentation, just note down what you would like to ask, and we will try to accommodate all your questions in one way or the other. Since we are losing time, I will please request the next presenter, Dr. Paul Womer from IITA, to make his presentation on the concept of the clearinghouse in TAAT, objectives, expected outputs, and approaches. So through these presentations, some of the things, questions you may have may be clarified. So that's why we are asking you to note them down. If they are clarified, just take them off your list so that only those remaining will be discussed during the time for general discussion. Paul, over to you.
Okay, I'm Paul Womer. I've been asked to describe the TAAT clearinghouse in terms of its goal, structure, and operations. I was actually asked by someone not to use any logos because I could never add enough logos, so I actually designed a funny one of my own, and that will be the end of any jokes or anecdotes, okay? The TAAT clearinghouse is a mechanism to expedite proven agricultural technologies through the African Development Bank investment interventions. It's transactional. It's going to be based upon demand for technologies and services by bank officers in their regional member countries. It's focused. It's limited to 8 priority interventions and their component value chains. It's holistic. It'll consider entire and intersecting value chains and addresses future projected needs. We had information about potential demand or likely demand, since we're not supposed to use the word potential anymore, by 2025. It's competitive. Partners will submit detailed intervention strategies. A portfolio will be assembled for assimilation by bank officers and regional member country clients as their programs are developed or expanded. It will be open. Any interested party is welcome to submit an intervention brief to the clearinghouse, and it will be comprehensive. The implementation support includes technical backstopping, monitoring and evaluation, capacity development, and where it is absolutely necessary, some strategic research and development. This will be particularly true when we try to expand targets of various technologies and we begin to encounter problems. You can think of it as the most downstream extension of the CG centers and their partners. There's been a lot of discussion how far up and downstream CG centers should operate, but this is where we really pass proven, potent technologies to the private sector and to country programs and that sort of thing. It's a dynamic framework that will assist the bank to develop transformative loan projects and to reduce their transaction costs. They're giving us money because they believe we can reduce their transaction costs and improve their projects to the extent where it now becomes advantageous to bring in the CG. The clearinghouse will assemble a portfolio of transactional agriculture investment opportunities. It addresses the bank's priority interventions. The list of 8 interventions were provided to us by the bank. Actually, the CG partners proposed approaches to them twice. And after the second one was questioned, they actually provided us with what were the 8 priority interventions. It'll expedite the process of project design and operations in a cost-effective manner, bringing these sort of transactional advantages that they're looking for. The portfolio itself will be readily available to bank officers developing agricultural development loans. You can think of it as almost like a briefcase or a desktop type reference for them to be able to put components together to develop the sort of projects that will bring the benefits that have been described in the agricultural transformation agenda. It's inclusive and transparent, and it will be evaluated by the bank and others. So I just have a little summary here where at the top we have the African Development Bank, Feed Africa, and its accompanying transformation agenda. And that they're responsible to regional member countries, and then TAAT is being included as a means to meet the agenda for its extended agricultural investment. So if we move through this, this is fine. That typically the regional member countries and the bank's country officers, they identify business opportunities, they formulate projects, they implement these transformational activities, and then the later impacts are assessed and achievements replicated. And the idea, if we bring in TAAT and its service regimes, that will provide this portfolio, we can make adjustments in an iterative and interactive manner, we can identify what kind of backstopping services are required, and eventually what we do will be assessed and refined and actually serve as a very positive feedback loop to even to the CG as a whole in terms of this form of service provision. And of course, there are a lot of steps here that I don't need to go into. And if we look at a few more additional details, that TAAT serves as a project within the Africa Development Bank's Feed Africa program, and it's very coincidental that Jonas basically ended with that. That the bank seeks to work with one agency, which will be the clearinghouse, not a myriad of competing and clamoring and sometimes excessive claims by several or many, numerous research centers. That it'll achieve its goal through the clearinghouse products and services. And you can think of it as an optional front end to the African Development Bank's development of potent loan projects. Developing a Feed Africa special fund that could accelerate TAAT interventions to subscribing regional member countries, sometimes several of them at a time, which would be a new way of doing business. And that it's intended to provide services beyond just the African Development Bank once it really proves itself. So here's the interrelationship now. What we have is the CG clearinghouse and the TAAT clearinghouse, the African Development Bank mostly in blue, and the regional member countries in brown here. And so the clearinghouse have members and partners. It can have flexible membership and such. And that it produces both interventions and services. But these feed into the agriculture and agro-industry section of the African Development Bank as they conduct their investigation, their appraisals, prepare documents, and develop loan agreements for approval by the Ministry of Finance, of the member countries, of the regional member countries. That's how they operate. We can't hope to change that. But the minute typically it will go to a frontline ministry. In many cases, in our cases, would be the Ministry of Agriculture and others. And by the way, the bank has been extremely successful in the design of numerous infrastructure development projects, and they have tremendous expertise in that area. I don't see us, or the clearinghouse, contributing greatly to that. But rather, it's now the commodity and value chain projects that are required to achieve the agricultural transformation agenda and our role as a technology and service provider within that. And then again, of course, there's project reporting and such, and feedback loops and that kind of thing. And I can summarize this. I even debated showing it in this much detail, because really what we see is the clearinghouse mobilizing potent technologies to help the bank design more robust loans that will help the regional member countries conduct strategic projects that achieve the goals that have been expressed earlier. Now, there is a more proactive TAAT framework, and I'm not going to go into this in great detail other than to say that there is a possibility for a Feed Africa special fund with these agricultural transformation agenda projects that address the eight priority interventions. You can see that we can bring in other strategic partners more readily, such as the private sector. And again, where there's the planned interventions, capacity development, technical backstopping, responsive M&E, and only where things are not working well do we see actually engaging in new research or adaptive research. This is probably not welcome news. The priority interventions, the component value chains, and target outcomes. We've spent a little bit of time. We were given information by IFPRI for potential demand. Oh, they took a picture of that one there. And so that basically we're looking at about 667 million that could come to TAAT to help to mobilize about 49 billion in Feed Africa investments that would result in returns in the regional member countries of about $188 billion. I know these numbers are slightly different, and of course, Dr. Chigi, his estimates will take precedence. He has a large team of economists, and I kind of did this in a hurry. But the idea is that we're targeting 2025. We're looking ahead. We know we're aiming at a moving target. Okay. While the design of the clearinghouse is subject to discussion, certain principles are important to its successful implementation. The clearinghouse will operate through a central headquarters, but it'll be willing to establish sub-regional priority intervention or within partner type offices, especially on a cost-sharing basis. The development of potent, proven investment packages is an important first step, followed by the transactional buy-ins for specific services the way that Jonas described them. Really, it's demand-driven in a way that if the regional member countries are not interested in your specific investments, then there's not going to be any demand and follow-up on them. The capacity development and policy analysis are constant features across these priority interventions, and both FARA and IFPRI will be speaking later at this workshop. And TAAT requires consistency of participation. It will be willing to purchase staff time within partners. What we don't want is a different staff member showing up at every meeting, sitting there, working on their computer and glancing up on occasion. We need commitment. We need people that understand what TAAT is about and are willing to work hard towards its goals. Okay, what we don't want is business as usual, people who are very, very efficient at interposing themselves and then kind of redirecting things back to business as usual. That's not going to work. That we've put together a preliminary budget. Now this is for the project that Jonas was talking about, to get TAAT going, to get the clearinghouse going independently of what he calls the multinational TAAT. And it's, you know, it's fairly reasonable. I mean, facilities now has become a catch-all. There's one very important thing, workshops at the regional member country level. The bank has difficulty sending anyone but its consultants to these meetings that are, you know, these real strategic meetings at the regional member country level. And that can be one of the functions of the clearinghouse, would be to provide the expertise quickly and responsively, so we would have a budget to do that. And so in general, we're asking them for about $3 million, that would be per year. This one you've seen already. Really all I want to do is to stress that the whole thing starts with TAAT clearinghouse interventions and services, and all of these other enablers actually cannot do a whole lot without the kind of services that TAAT is being asked to provide. And of course, the regional member countries are the focus of all activities, including allied agro-industries and production input manufacturers, these risk-sharing facilities. Fantastic progress has been made recently on risk sharing. That you know, empowered and engaged farmer associations, this hits upon some of the capacity building developments, and then you can see the policy reforms and support. But and of course, you know, we always have the same overall development outcomes to eliminate hunger and malnutrition, extreme poverty. But really, this whole idea of Africa becoming a net food exporter and its full engagement in agricultural value chains by 2025 is a profound target, and it's one we should all be striving towards. So the next steps, you know, we need to discuss organizational structure and supervision, where it will be located, how it will be housed, how centralized versus virtual the approaches are. We need to really take advantage of electronic communications to keep our costs down, and some people just seem to travel from one meeting to the next, and while they're very good at writing their travel reports, when you look at it, after many years, we don't see, poor people having more to eat. The mixture of skills that are required, I mean, how much will the banking skills be handled by the bank, or the economics type skills handled by the bank, and how much would be the CG is a particularly important question. Our acquisition of the startup funds, we want $3 million, and we'll get going for you. We'll give you a portfolio of 50 interventions within 6 to 9 months after receiving those funds. We'll place a call for the first round of the intervention briefs. And we must document the transactional advantages of the clearinghouse, because it's actually there to help the bank develop more potent loans at less cost. And if we can't prove that we're doing that, they're not going to keep us around for very long. And indeed, the issues need to be discussed at this workshop. I just want to show you, this is the kind of stuff we need. If you look in the upper left, inexpensive greenhouses that are designed and established, if really water efficient irrigation systems, followed by the best of the hybrid crops, harvested and sold in standard quantities and in standard